Someone sent a message the other day and asked, why should I care about Kamusi? And there are really two answers for that. What's in it for me? And then there's the question of what's in it for other people. Let's look at that first part first. What's in it for you? What is it that Kamusi has to offer you that other dictionaries don't? Well, if you only ever speak English, if you live in a mostly English speaking area, you don't travel much, you don't work with non-English speakers, you don't search for information about English words, if you never use a dictionary, maybe there isn't much in it for you. Maybe you shouldn't care too much. There will be some technologies that emerge based on the data we're able to build for things for speech recognition and things that could have some very cool applications when they make it into your life, like having your telephone recognize your regional accent. But those aren't immediate, and those aren't going to be transformative. Most current dictionaries are based on a 19th century design of what should be included and how it should be arranged, basically chunks of text. And they use 20th century methods, authorities reviewing terms at their desks and releasing changes every few years. Wiktionary has some more modern features, and I invite you to read an article at kamusi.org/Wiktionary that explains the limitations of their data structure and the wiki method versus our design and techniques. The Oxford English Dictionary is generally regarded as the best dictionary out there, but it's not available to you unless you have a big hunk of dough to lay out, and it's not available to most students around the world. What we're doing is free, and it's also dynamic. It can be readily expanded, and it will include a wider range of information and a much more user-focused organization that will make it easier and more satisfying to use, as you can read about on the address you see on your screen. And what if your language needs do extend beyond English? What if you work with non-English speakers, you travel from time to time, you live in an area with mixed languages, or where English isn't widely spoken, or you speak two or more languages? This is where you'll find that where we're heading can be truly transformative. New technologies to gather and share otherwise non-existent data. The address you see on your screen explains more about how what we're doing can improve automatic machine translation, and there are also some fun things that can happen for futuristic Star Trek type technologies. If language is a regular part of your life, what we're working on could become as much a part of navigating your day as Google or Wikipedia or your GPS. We don't know whether you'll need Danish, Dinka, Dari, Dakota. We don't know if you're doing business, traveling, reading, studying, watching a foreign movie, emigrating. But our system is designed to get thorough and reliable data for all of those languages and share it with you when, where, and how you need it. What's the difference? What are we doing that's new that changes how you use a dictionary for other languages? Let's look quickly at the old way, the standard way of comparing languages. Usually, you take a word in one language, say travail in French, and then list its translations to another language. But this gets tricky very quickly because you don't have much information about the terms on either side. For travail, whether you mean general effort, paid employment, or active childbirth. This is the Panlex list of all the terms in all the languages that they've got data for that match to some sense of travail. And the only way to figure out which of these refer to a mother in labor would be to go to individual dictionaries for each specific language, in the unlikely event that you can put your hands on one. Here's Ataco, another multilingual list. For labor, can you find which refers to childbirth in Spanish? If we use existing bilingual dictionaries, especially for big pairs like French-Spanish or English-Spanish, then we can often zero in on our sense. But by the time we get to a big but poorly resourced language like Swahili, it's not that easy, and for most languages, it's pretty impossible. What we've introduced, our magic sauce, is essentially a new design principle. We treat each concept as a new entity, and we match its meaning across languages. This way we can bring in an unlimited number of languages and not get tangled up by the letters that a term happens to contain. We can match concepts from French to English to Spanish to Swahili, and we can grow each of these ideas to its equivalents potentially in all 7,000 human languages. One planned feature is to build you a language checker tool, kind of like a spell checker, so you can get the right words for your translations every time. The full extent of what we're producing for you is much more complicated than that, but in the interests of time, let's just look at the actual Kamusi lookup for travail. You can see that the senses are separated out. The sense of useful activity has equivalents in 20 languages. And here we can move through the childbirth sense from French to Swahili to Spanish to English, with a definition in each language to keep you on track. Those are some of the reasons to support Kamusi as something you'll use and benefit from personally. But the other side of the coin is, what does your support for Kamusi give to other people? Kamusi began as a project for African languages, and our heart is still with those languages that don't have many existing resources of their own or much prospect of developing them. We're developing custom tools for documenting endangered languages within our platform to preserve the cultural heritage encoded in languages that might soon disappear. This is for the communities themselves that are trying to save and revitalize their languages, and also for posterity. minority languages, and here I mean languages that lack official support or don't have many resources. School books, educational games, websites with job postings, software instructions, all of that is just so much wah 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 wah, and it'll remain that way for all of our lifetimes. Some people say, why doesn't everybody just learn English? But that's not going to happen, and it's a lot cheaper and faster and easier to digitize a few thousand languages than to expect billions of people to start speaking the language that you and I just happen to have been born into or have had the opportunity to study. Along those lines, we've developed tools for scientific terminologies that will help people learn advanced topics and share their results. I was talking with a Czech physicist recently who was saying that one of the hardest parts of his training was not having a Czech vocabulary at hand so that he could master his science in the language he understood first and then worry about discussing it internationally. In commerce, I've seen people bike across a border in Europe and utterly fail to negotiate a hotel room because the language has changed. And how can an artisan in Africa make real money selling her crafts if she doesn't have the language tools for Amazon or e-banking or discussing with suppliers or customers? In health, a few groups are getting information out in major West African languages for the current Ebola crisis, but it's distressingly rare to find information people can understand about nutrition or pregnancy or heart disease. I've been in many health facilities in Africa where doctors trained in English just don't have the words to talk with their patients where they're stationed. There are so many other daily situations where language is a barrier, and good language tools would open up opportunities and make communications easier. But again, these tools don't exist. The people who need them most are the ones who can least afford to pay for them, and nobody who could pay for them has any plans to make it so. This is especially important in secondary education, where students are exposed to the topics that could launch them into good jobs or higher education, but they don't have the foreign language skills to interpret chemistry or calculus or economics. The local secondary school where I've lived, in a Bena and Hehe speaking village in Tanzania, has one mediocre print dictionary for 400 students. Can you imagine reading a civics text about your legal system or learning literature or civil engineering if you had to line up behind 399 other people to look up a word? Kamusi has a modular, scalable solution that can get a massive language resource onto any device, including in Africa where more than half the people already have mobile phones. We're talking about local languages for which no resources currently exist, leapfrogging from no resources to datasets that can support next generation technologies. We're talking about regional languages like Kinyarwanda, millions or tens of millions of speakers, where you'd need $100 to put your hands on a dictionary that's had maybe a few thousand copies ever printed. But you absolutely need Kinyarwanda to make it through most circumstances in most of Rwanda. And we're talking about world languages because on a shrinking planet, you never know when someone from Rwanda is going to need to communicate with somebody speaking Quechua or Gujarati or Icelandic, or with you. People can learn from others, they can share what they know, and maybe we'll all be a little better off. Whether you want to find the gym hours in your hotel room overseas, or maybe you want to sell fitness bars to 175 million consumers in Nigeria, or you'd like to help produce a tool that your daughter can use in her future career as a scholar of epic Mongolian poetry, or you'd like to help preserve the knowledge embedded in a dying language, or open opportunities for students who can't afford to buy their own dictionaries, or lay the groundwork for that futuristic universal translator, Kamusi is combining 21st century design, 21st century methods, 21st century goals towards language equity, advanced technology. This is what we're aiming for, this is why you should care, and this is why I hope you'll help us get there.